Hi, this is... looks better if you take the lens cap off. Duh, I can't be bothered to do that again. What a dork. Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. We had a problem last night. I went to bed and I got in bed and I thought, what the hell's going on? This bed's wet. And I thought, well, it wasn't me. And it was obviously one of the cats had weed on the bed. Now, this is very strange because if any of you have ever owned cats, cat wee is horrible and stinks. It's real strong ammonia, and it wasn't. It was as though I'd spilt a glass of water or something. I couldn't work it out, and quite honestly, it was too late. I couldn't be bothered to do anything with it. I put my dressing gown on and came downstairs and slept in the chair. Now, I watched a film first, a really old film, and that finished quite late. And instead of waking up somewhere between 4 and 5 o'clock, this morning I woke up at 6:45. Now, if anybody else had been in the house, they'd have thought I was dead, waking up that late. So I actually had a really good night's sleep. And I've gone upstairs this morning and put the mattress up against the radiator. You know, it's just a bit of an inconvenience, really. But it doesn't smell. It's really odd. I mean, it's obviously one of the cats. And then I thought, you know, are the cats getting old that they can't control themselves anymore? And then Elvis was at the cat flap scratching. And I thought, what's the matter with him? The cat flap was jammed shut. So it wasn't Pussycat's fault at all. I don't know what was jamming it, but I had to push it quite hard to get it to open. And now it swings both ways as normal. So something got jammed in there, probably with these high winds. You know, it could have been a small stone or something got jammed down the side. But anyway, the cat flap was jammed shut, so they couldn't get out. And Elvis was making quite a fuss, so, you know, it's they're going to make quite a fuss in the new place because there isn't even a cat flap to scratch at. Well, there is, but it only goes into a toilet. So anyway, I had a thought while I was watering all my pots yesterday that there are plants in amongst here that just won't grow. And you sort of think, oh, I can't be bothered with them anymore, I'm just going to dump them. And then you stop and think, a lot of them would be irreplaceable with Brexit now. You can't get at the sort of people where you could replace things from. You know, the European traders coming over to our shows in the UK has sort of ceased to be now, as far as we know. We haven't put it to the test yet. So they wouldn't be able to be replaced. And there are some that I wouldn't want gone, if you know what I mean. But I don't know. You know, I mean, I was just watching Lynn's video about things that just won't grow, like a Sotoanum. Now, I've got one like that. Mine's buried in the back here. Mine's in flower as well. Oh, sorry, camera angle, but this is difficult to get at without moving all the other pots first. But mine's in flower as well. But it's not doing well. What it is doing is putting up a couple of feeble weak growths that I don't even think are going to progress. But the latest growth there in the middle, which is weak, again, managed a weak spike. And it's not growing well, it just won't get going. Now, the one thing I do know is that's in old media, so come the spring that will come out of there. And the pot's too big anyway, so it needs dealing with. But I'm going to keep it going. It is a species, and the fragrance is gorgeous, and but it won't grow. So you keep doing the same thing over and over again, you are liable to get the same result. So it's not going back in the media, anything remotely like that. It will get something different. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, it just won't grow. And it's not that rare, you know. Whereas you get something like this, which can never be replaced. I doubt if that could be replaced ever. It's an Oncidium verrucosum variety Rogersii balding, and it won't grow. It's deteriorated, it's got worse and worse, and it's currently just sat in some Welsh moss just to see if it will push a new growth out. I may try that on a mount. I don't know, but it won't grow. There's a couple of my Miltoniopsis that just won't grow very well, but they are pulling up now. The trouble is you get to the stage where you think it's not growing very well at all, but it's trying. And once a plant starts to try, you sort of want to give it a chance, don't you? So you don't give up on them. But, you know, they take up space and they increase your workload. So it takes your choice, really. You can be ruthless, like I have been at times. But I've sort of got to the stage now where I'm not as ruthless, because getting more plants is not easy. You know, I go to Burnham's, they have a limited choice, and you could probably say 90% of what they sell I don't want. You know, either because I've already got it or it just doesn't appeal to me. So it's not a natural source of new plants. And the shows, well, they've been non-existent for ages, you know, because of the pandemic and all that sort of stuff. But, yeah, so getting new orchids is not an easy matter now. I mean, you've still got spiciotic plants, you know, well, they sell on eBay, but I'd prefer to just deal with them direct on their website. I don't like getting involved with eBay anymore, the way it's changed its rules. People who sell and try and earn a crust on eBay have been shot in the foot, the way the payments work now. You're having to send out your goods that somebody's bought before they've paid for them. Now, that's just not on. You know, you don't go into a shop and say, can I have a Mars bar, please? And, you know, you take away the Mars bars. It's all right, I'll be back tomorrow to pay. It'll be okay. You don't do that sort of thing. You pay for things if you want them. Anyway, another matter. We've got a Twinkle Care collab coming up, and I still don't think I'm going to have any open. I've got flipping spikes coming out all over the place. Spikes here, spikes here, spikes here, spikes here, spikes here. But no blooms, that's the problem. And I don't think that's probably the spike that's closest to opening, and I don't think that's going to open in 5 days. Even though it's tiny twinkle and the blooms are tiny, I still don't think that's going to be open in 5 days' time. But we can have a look at the plants, some of which are not doing too well, but they had a bad year. They'll have a better year next year. I've got every confidence that the twinkles will pull through, and we don't worry about those. And I was just thinking along the lines of some colour to come. We've got silhouetted against the morning sun. See, now that's how low the sun gets. The sun is shining through next door's conservatory. It can't even get up above the flipping roof. It's so low in the sky. Anyway, we've got those to come, and that's on a plant that we have no name for at the moment. The name that it's got on the tag that came from Jeff's is not viable. We've got those to come. Those buds are starting to get shape to them, but I don't know how big they're going to get, because I've, you know, never seen the blooms before. And because we haven't got a name, I can't go and look it up. Well, I have looked it up and it doesn't exist, so that doesn't help much, does it? In amongst here, I mean, the Restrepias are, you know, well, some of them are constantly in bloom. The Hibiki, those blooms are still there. I don't know how long they've been there now. Must be 4 months, 3-4 months. Absolute age, and no sign of another bud anywhere. I mean, it grows, it just keeps growing, it keeps pushing up new growths. So the plant itself is growing well, but that desperately needs a repot, but it's not getting done in the winter when it's, well, it's growing incredibly slowly, and to disturb it now wouldn't be the best of ideas. It'd be better to disturb it as it starts to grow faster, at which point it'll probably be pushing out roots as well. So we'll have a go at that. But yeah, stuff to come. In amongst here, I can safely say that the Brassia up against the glass there will bloom, but not yet. It's only just started pushing up its new growths. The Miltoniopsis hybrid there has got 3 new growths that are pushing on quite strong. At least one of those will push a spike up eventually, but they're not doing it yet. We have got a spike on this, my little mounted Phalaenopsis, that's got a spike on it. Now, if I can, when I get to the other place, the Phalaenopsis are going to go on the kitchen windowsill. Let me just break off. which is where they are now. But hopefully that I can get some sort of hook or something for that. I mean, the windowsill in the new place is quite a bit bigger than this for a start, so there'll be more room. And if the worst comes to the worst, that little mounted Phalaenopsis can just hang off of one of these pots facing the glass. But out of this lot I've only got one spike that's pushing on, but yeah. So they're not blooming very well at the moment. I left this spike on to see if it would branch, and it looks like it might. But anyway, they're another story. Anyway, back to stuff in here. I mean, I can go around making predictions. I mean, Laelia anceps, that silhouette against the glass, is starting to get that flat look about the end, which means the buds are about to form. But it's still probably at least 6 weeks away from blooming, maybe less, but it's a long way off. Most of the Cattleyas are not doing too well, but are capable of pulling on, given a decent growing season and new media virtually across the board. They could get going and you know, do very well next year. I haven't eradicated the scale, but it's losing. It's losing the battle. And this time of year, I don't take any notice of it, because the scale are just virtually dormant. They're there, lurking. Some of them are still alive, no doubt, but they're not expanding their domains. So, you know, and I don't like getting the plants wet in any shape or form this time of year, so I'm reluctant to use sprays this time of year. And I thought, well, we could give them a whack with the alcohol every time I see them. Unfortunately, Hannah's packed my spray. And she said, what about all this orchid stuff? So I picked up a few things and said, well, I need that. You can pack the rest. And of course, the little sprayer went in there, didn't it? So I haven't got a means of applying it. Well, down here, we've got this Thailand black. There's only 3 buds, 1 aborted. Yeah, but it's 3 buds and it's the first rebloom. So that's okay. That will bloom. And there's another new growth pushing up on that. This thing at the back, I forget what that's called, but once the blooms hang over like that, they're not too far from opening. They look tiny, but the blooms actually open up medium size, I would say. My delicatum is totally dormant at the moment, and the chances are it's nowhere near cold enough in here for it to actually get it to bloom properly. But even if it bloomed, it wouldn't be a massive spectacle. It's only got a few canes. But that's the latest cane over there, the one sticking out through there. And that's got nubbins on it. We might get some blooms. The fragrance on that is so powerful. This Brassica here, the oldest leaves on the oldest bulb are going, but that's got new growths pushing on. That will bloom. Yeah? I mean, this big, this says Miltonia hybrid. Now, that did have a different tag on it, but because I put it into the Bournemouth Orchid Society's competition tables, which it got a first in, I had to change the label, because on the label I had Miltonia Morelliana and hybrid in brackets, because it is based on the Morelliana. But on a show table, you can't do that, so I had to just change the tag. But because that just says Miltonia hybrid, I know which one it is. You following this? So that will reliably bloom, and some of the last year's growths are pushing up 2 growths, 1 each side. So we're going to have more growths and possibly a more spectacular blooming on that. The Nobiles dotted around. There's one here. The swellings are starting to show. They're there. There's another big one up the back there that I can't get at, but the Nobiles will all bloom, you know, in one shape or form. So, you know, dendrobium time will come next year, and there will be lots of dendrobiums, and they'll bloom and they'll do well, but not now. This is just one of those not much going on times. This is looking good. But you know, I can't for the life of me remember. I got the Wessex Orchid Society's Christmas do tomorrow, and I can't remember whether we take plants in or not. because it would be an easy one for me to take a plant in. Because although I'm treasurer, the only treasurer stuff I've got to do tomorrow is the raffle. Well, I don't do the raffle, but I need to take the float in and then obviously take the money back and account for it afterwards. But that's all. I haven't got anything else to do. If anybody else walks up to me with any treasurer related issues, they're going to get, really? At a Christmas do? Really? Just to get them back on their haunches to have a think about what they're doing. It's a Christmas do. I don't want to work. Anyway, we've got these two nice spikes pushing up here. The blooms on this are gorgeous. It's a, I forget, has it got a name? I don't think it has. It might have. Let's have a look. It says, it says Cambria Hybrid, shades of purple. So no, it hasn't got a name. Cambria's not a proper name. Well, not now, it's not. What else? Down here, that's my Tahitian dancer. That's got two spikes coming. This huge Rossio glossum, Rawdon Jester, is still yet to bloom. That was bought out of bloom. We lost a whole set of roots thanks to a rather large slug, took them all off in one night. But it's recovered. It's produced two new growths. The bulbs are full size. It's kept its leaves. It looks like it's some of the older leaves are starting to go now, but these are really old pseudo bulbs at the back. But that's still yet to bloom. Well, maybe this season. And then we've got the other two big Miltonias. We've got Reginellii at the back there. That's just starting its new growths. And then this is the Spectabile hybrid. It's not the true species, but again, new growths are starting. You know, down in these edges, new growths are starting. They'll bloom. This Zygo got moved because where it was in the flipping way. This is the Louisendorf. Now this has produced a little growth there that's not going to grow, and this one's pushing on nicely. But the fact that it's pushing on nicely with no sign of a spike at the base probably means it's not actually going to bloom. So we might have to wait a while for that. But it's doing okay. The leaves aren't dropping. You know, it's not dying. This is a bonus. Then we've got another couple of Oncidium types down here that should bloom on their latest growths. Yeah, so stuff to come. And I mean, up here we got the bank of Tolumnias. We got, oh, I was just going to say we got one in bud now, but what we've actually got is one in bloom. Let's get it down. We've had this one not too long ago in bloom. This is White Beauty, but that's just opened. That wasn't open yesterday when I watered the mounts. So it's just opened today. And like most of the time, being able to hold a Tolumnia still enough to get a focus on it is almost impossible, but we will try. Come on. But it's called White Beauty. It's a colour changer because when it opens it's not white, but it will be. It will be white and deep red. So that's just opened. That's not a really good spike for a Tolumnia, actually, but it's not, you know, it's not bad. I mean, it's only a tiny little plant. Some of it was lost, some of it rotted, but it's recovered and it's done some new roots, so it's sort of doing okay. Yeah. So it's going to be twinkle time soon. That'll be the next flush of blooms, all tiny, but all fragrant, different. We got yellow, we got cinnamon, we got pink. We've got a twinkle hybrid, Margaret something or other, and tiny twinkle. So we've got all the twinkles to come, and they won't be too long. They'll be a while. They don't rush. There's no hurrying a twinkle. You can't do that. We've got this Orangus fastuosa. That's got a spike pushing on slowly, slowly, slowly. That will push on slowly through the winter and gather speed as the longer days come, and then it will bloom. Might not be a good blooming because it's a young plant. That's its first blooming, so it might not be a spectacular blooming, but at least it's trying. And then at some point next year, the black hair type and the Latoria types might decide to push some blooms out. So there's always things to look forward to if you've got enough in your collection, and a bit of variety will help. I mean, if you've got all Oncidium types, you will still get blooms throughout the season potentially, But most Oncidium types bloom around once a year, or perhaps a bit less, sort of every 10 or 11 months. But some are annual, and they have a pretty precise calendar built into their mechanics. So they will bloom at the same time, roughly, within a couple of weeks each year. But different Oncidium types will bloom at different times of year. So you can still have some in bloom year round. I've got one Oncidium type in bloom at the moment, and that's this one. That's it. But I got buds coming all over the place. There will be more soon, and I've got one starting new growths. Well, they will bloom eventually. The Miltonias, the big Miltonias, this one, and this one, they all tend to bloom roughly the same time, and it's later in the year, so got quite a wait for those, but they will happen. And I think when you start getting mature plants, or plants you've had a while, it all becomes predictable, and you can tell whether your plant still has enough health within it that the new growths are going to bloom successfully. If your plant's going downhill, the growths are getting weak, the bulbs or canes are getting smaller, you're losing more older leaves than you should be, root system's not very good, then your new growth may well not bloom. But then do something about it. If you keep doing the same thing over and over again, you'll get the same results. And if those results are a plant that's deteriorating, something's got to change. Normally, the media is always my first port of call. Is if a plant's not doing that well, it normally means its roots aren't too good. So why? Well, is it old media? Is it stale? Are you keeping it too wet? Is it too dry? Rare occurrence, but it can happen. There are plants that object to being too dry, but most of them object far more to being too wet. Far more orchids lost that way around. I've only got one bulbophyllum left, and it gets neglected now. These are supposed to stay moist. Well, it's chucking new growths out all over the place. Down the bottom there, you've got one halfway up to the right, big one near the top, another one right at the top. Out this side, you've got 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so that's growing really well despite its neglect. Should never dry out. Stays moist all the time. Well, is it growing well? Yes. So is that porcupines? Yes. So sometimes you're making a workload for yourself by following the books and the ancient runes and the scrolls, should never dry out. Constantly moist. Well, it's growing perfectly well without that. Because this time of year my mounts, I slow them down, the watering. I've got resting ones in amongst them. Most of the others are not growing very much, if anything. They don't need flooding all the time, the heat's not there. We do have one disaster, which is a shame, because chances of replacing this are pretty slim. Mr. Hairy has almost had it. It really has gone downhill. Got left on the mount too long, the mount itself started to rot, the moss had gone over, and it deteriorated and lost most of its roots. Well, that little flush of roots at the top went with a new growth, and the new growths failed. So even with some new roots, it failed. So it's got a little bit of green left, not a lot, but I'm hoping that it will pull through. But again, do the same thing, you get the same results. I had one that was weak, I grew it on, it gained strength, it bloomed well, and then it failed. This one was growing well and now it's failed. So maybe it just doesn't like being on a mount. Maybe we need to change something. Maybe my place is just too warm for it because it's a cooler grower. There's all sorts of things could be wrong, perhaps it's getting too much light, which it puts a strain on plants. Too little light, so all these variables might need to be changed, not all at once, but I've got a feeling it's just not happy on the mount. We shall see. I'm not dealing with it. It's in a very weakened state now. Come the longer days, it might kick it into some regrowth in places. Well, that's the time to get at it because the new roots are going to be there or around there sometime. So that's the time to deal with it, not when it's in a weakened state and stop growing completely. It's not the best time to play with things. We've also got some dendrobiums that may bloom for the first time. There aren't many other plants that haven't bloomed in amongst the other things, if you see what I mean. Most of them have bloomed, or at least were in bloom when I got them. My only dodgy set is Cattleyas at the moment, but I'm hoping they're going to pull on. They might not, because in the new place the light level is going to be a bit lower. Even though they will get given the best light I can, it might not be enough. That might slow them up as far as blooming is concerned, but they might grow better. So you give them the brightest light you possibly can, you know, because for most of them that's what they need. But when they haven't got a good root system because you've caused a problem, that's putting a strain on the plant, because you're giving it its ideal growing conditions without a root system to back it up. It then becomes not ideal. So perhaps lower light would be better to give them a chance to grow and get a decent root system on them. And then at a later time, perhaps try and worry about blooming. You know, if you bloom a Cattleya that's in a weak state, all it'll do is get weaker. You know, you take the strength out of them. So we shall see what we shall do. We've got 3 Rhinantheras, none of which have bloomed. And certainly that larger one up the end there, that's plenty big enough to bloom. But it hasn't yet. Now those are highlight jobbies. So whether we'll ever see them bloom or not, who knows? And if they don't, but they grow well, I still might keep them. Don't make up my mind that easily, not on things like that, you know. Anyway, I'm going to leave that for today. This video is being done first thing in the day for a change, because I wanted to get it out of the way. And then I'm going to do a trip over to the new place with some stuff, not a lot, and I'm going to load up all the old electronic stuff for recycling and drop that off on the way back through, because it clears some space. And then I've got a big job to do. I collected cardboard boxes over the last couple of years, and I've almost got a room full. Well, I'm getting to the point now where I don't need many boxes anymore, and I need the boxes gone. So we're going to have a stamping session where we just get boxes and stamp on them and flatten them, and then they can all get thrown in the back of the car and taken up the tip. So we've got that to do, and I've still got a little bit of shredding to do today, but it's not much. It's got to be done by Monday. It's Friday today. There are days when I can still do that last little bit, and it's not much. So yeah, I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by. As I say, it's when you've got quite a large collection, there's always some anticipation of things to come. I mean, I know my Hercoglossum will have a few blooms and then it'll be a mass blooming, but they don't last too long, and then it might have a little flush of blooms later on. I've had it long enough to just know what it's going to do, and yet there's other plants I haven't got a clue what they're going to do. So I haven't had them long enough, or they've just never bloomed. You know, there are some like that. So, we shall see. I've got a feeling that this might be a bud pushing. So this is one that has been. It's not solid. It's been before, but that one is solid. So we may have a bud pushing on that one, and that is. It's got a name. I doubt if I can get my hand through and get to the label. It's one of the main black hair type species. Infundibulum. Of course it is, you twit. Yeah, so we may have some blooms on that. They're pretty big, they're pretty spectacular, if that's what it is. So, right, I shall leave it at that, and have a bit of breakfast, and then think about starting to load up the car with some stuff, slowly but surely. No big rush, no heavy stuff, and just do a run. I need to wait for a while. I can't do that run early in the day because the traffic's just so bad. It's better to just wait. So if I load the car up now, take it over, I might, because I've got the new hose now, I might try and connect up the washing machine, but I know it's going to be difficult, because what I'm going to have to do, I forget where I got this idea from, but I've got to get a hose to go behind a cupboard to appear through a hole in that cupboard to make the connection. Well, what you do is you get a long stick with a piece of string tied to the end. You push the stick through till it gets to the hole, grab the piece of string and pull it, and then tie the other end of the piece of string to the end of what you want to pull through, and then just pull the string through and it'll drag whatever you want through to where you want it to be, which will be the hose connector which goes on the end of the pipe. The difficulty will be doing it up tight, because I don't know how the hell I'm going to get a spanner of any sort in there, but it might be one of those that if you do it up finger tight, it'll be okay. And if it just needs a last little pinch, what you can do is those sort of connectors have ribs round the side for gripping. You know, like a mole wrench would grip onto it nicely. I don't know where the hell mine went, but it's gone. But what you can do is just put a screwdriver against it and tap it with a hammer, and it'll gently turn it and just tighten it up and pinch it. So I might need to do that. But the other hose that's got to go through there is the waste pipe, and I think I might be able to do the same thing, because that's got to go underneath the cupboard and then come up sort of behind it, right up near to the top. So, you know, that again, I might be able to drag that through on the stick and the piece of string thing. But the top of the waste pipe has got a connector on it at the moment, which has got to come off. And again, I can't get a spanner in there, so I hope it's not done up too tight. But again, it's one of those with the ribs around the edge. I might be able to just tap it with a screwdriver and a hammer, just gently knock it until it turns enough that I can then undo it with my fingers. And then the pipe just flops in the top, basically, and that's it. So anyway, time to get some work done. Enough waffling. See you next time. Bye for now.